What is up, everyone? Let me just go ahead and start this off real quick by pointing out I have absolutely no interest in what's going on in Derrick Jaxn's life because I never really knew the guy, and like all up and down my Facebook wall has been like, "Oh, Derrick Jaxn's getting a divorce because he's cheating." Blah 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 blah. I don't care. He's a celebrity. He is a dude who got rich, basically telling other people as I said on my podcast a couple of times already, stupidity is America's like greatest superpower because I feel like my whole thing is that like I want to be famous because I want to help people. And that's my thing. I want to be famous because I know that's the quickest way to get rich, and getting rich means I have the money to help people. Like what I want to do is I want to actually put what I have towards helping out others, you know. And in the case, and the problem is that like the people who people make famous are some of the worst people, and the reason why they're famous is because they're obscenely good looking, and people just there's this I forget where I read it from, but there was this idea that uh there's this idea that people trust or rather feel safer or more welcome towards like just legitimately beautiful people. And in the case of Derrick Jaxn, what I assume happened was that like a whole bunch of ladies started following him because, oh wow, swole guy, and then it's like, oh wow, swole guy who's actually saying stuff that I like, and as time went by, it became other things. I don't care about that guy's marriage though. I just don't. It's beneath me. It doesn't make any sense that there is such a high focus on this. But that is not what this discussion is about. This discussion is about like ultimately humor. I like to think that as a kid, humor has changed for me. But the thing is that like it hasn't. Humor has always been what it is. It's always a form of amusement towards somebody in some fashion, in some way, whatever. So not necessarily it's like not necessarily a humor thing as much as it's like my take on humor has always sort of been different. Like when I was a kid, I feel like the older I got, the more my humor taste changed. Cause like when I was a kid growing up, you used to watch a lot of slaps. Like I was always a fan of animated things. I was always a fan of these weird shapes moving. I just thought that was a cool. It's like I remember being a kid and being like a huge fan of The Simpsons because it was just yellow people, and you would see Homer with the "why you little," and you have like Bart and when you're a kid, stuff like that is funny. And then as the older I got, and learning how to read at a young age, I started paying attention to stuff that they were saying, and it's like, wait a minute, some of the stuff they're saying is funny. Like they're actually saying, like they're actually telling jokes. Like I remember there was this one joke where Bart Simpson put like glasses on his butt, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Dr. Cheeks. As you can obviously tell, I'm a little behind." You know what I'm saying? It's like that's a joke. It's his butt, and he's saying it's behind. It was just like things like that. So I think the older I got, and the more I started to understand, words and like puns and references and things like that, it became less about the physical aspect of humor, and more about the verbal and what they're saying. And then as time went by, the older I got, I started, like it became less about insults. Insults were funny, when I was a kid growing up because I was always under the impression that I would never get insulted because the joke's on them, ha ha ha. Schadenfreude, 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 and then I started getting. Then people started making jokes about me, and it's like, oh, that's what that feels like. And then I started seeing how it made like. Then I started seeing like how it could possibly make other people feel, and I was like, okay, wow, that it's not nearly as funny when I understand how bummed out they feel about what's going on. You know, then the insults will always be like lies or just hyperbolic little extravagancies for the funny. So that was a whole nother thing that just made me sort of like change my perspective on humor. So like nowadays, there's this whole nowadays there's this this whole idea of people just saying blatant lies for humor purposes. Like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with what's going on Twitter right now, but Twitter manages to have it so that anybody can get a check mark as long as they make enough money or so whatever. So now there's this one guy, there's these people who are making fake accounts of real people or like real celebrities or whatever, just so they can make jokes. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, now my whole thing is that, like, on one hand, do it for the funny, right? Like, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand why. I don't agree with the idea of doing things like that for the sake of being funny, but I can see that and be like, okay, he's clearly doing it for the funny. He's not doing this to be malicious. He's not doing this to have a message. He's doing this because he thinks it's funny. But then there's another part of me is like, lies shouldn't be that funny, because like the problem is that, like, because the problem, the aspect is that, like, if you lie, the more you lie about something and laugh about it, the more you repeat, people gonna repeat that lie because it's funny. And when they repeat that lie because it's funny, now the thing is, now the lie is becoming more than what it is. Like, people are now going to accept the lie as truth. Nobody is going to, and if anybody ever be like, well, actually that's not true, the first thing that people are going to say is, quit being such a buzzkill. You know what I'm saying? Just let the lie continue to amuse us, it's like, and that's kind of my whole reason why I don't really like insults and humor that involves harming people, because like at some point people find amusement in the harm that it's doing rather than the actual joke itself. Like, there's like I say on Twitter, there's this one account of this actress who died recently. I forgot her name, but like, and it was like somebody said, hey, can y'all not do the joke accounts of me until I'm at least a good, nice and cold in the ground first? And I'm like, I mean, like, imagine that person's family, you know what I'm saying? Like, whether you, like, however you may have felt about this person, you know what I'm saying? At the very least, at the very least, give them a little bit of peace, Like, I'm not the biggest Trump fan, and I'm not the biggest Republican fan. But and I can tell you right now, if Mitch McConnell were to croak tomorrow and somebody made a page about Mitch McConnell being the evil turtle after he's dead, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna laugh at these. I'm gonna laugh at these memes. I'm gonna laugh at these jokes. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't like Mitch McConnell, but also because I'm smart enough to know that, like, also I'm smart enough to know that, like, whatever insult they have at Mitch McConnell is just an insult. It's not like a blatant truth. It's not something we could push as a truth. People say, oh, he looks like a turtle. And I was like, no, I think he looks like a rotting out human being, It's like, well, we know that he doesn't look like a turtle. You're just saying that, and it's like, that makes sense. But there's other, it's like, now, but there's other animals that he looks like. I think he looks a little bit like a lizard. Without the long snout. I mean, like, there's a fish that looks kind of like that, like what he has going on. I mean, he has a waddle. Why come we don't say he looks like a turkey or whatever? I'm just saying, it's just like, my problem is that, like, at some point you start believing your own, like, the more you say BS, the more you start to believe the BS, and the more you start to try to normalize the BS as something more than just a joke. And yeah, people love saying, oh, you're just overthinking things. You're just trying to, ruin fun. And it's like, it's not. It's like, if I'm trying to, it's like, if it's, why would you take fun so seriously? It's like the ultimate irony here. It's like, no, you're taking the fun seriously, and it's like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm trying to make sense of what's going on, because, like, inside of all of us is somebody who's trying to make sense of the craziness that's going on. You know what I'm saying? We use jokes to sort of like soften the blow of the craziness. But me, I try to just sort of get it, you know, because there's more to it than what's being said. Like when I was a kid growing up, I used to like slapstick comedy. Slapstick comedy, you know, it was three things I liked about slapstick comedy: the quick movements and the sounds, and it was the quick movements, the sounds, and like you know when you saw it in like a certain cartoon, it would have like the motion blur lines to make, you know, so it would be it would be like, you know, the animation involved in it was something that made it funny. But the older I got, you know, the more I started to learn that actual fights has never been two aggressors. You know, the actual fights has usually is always somebody who's being an aggressor and somebody who's defending themselves. So it's like the more I started to see that that's what fights were, that's what physical fist fights were, the less I started to look at slap shots, because like slapstick, because like there'll be like there was one cartoon I remember, it was like I think it was something in Muggsy or something like that, but it was like a smaller 1920s white gangster and his henchman, who was like this large guy, this large not really smart guy. So when a larger guy would like make a mistake, the shorter guy would say, "Come here," you know what I mean? "Don't you make the mistake again," or some crap like that. And it's like, you know, like maybe like looking at it now is ultimately just a manipulator manipulating a slower witted yet much larger individual, you know, because maybe that slower witted person is not exactly the smartest person and they're easily manipulated, but they're also really, really, really strong. It's just, you know, there's a bit of a dynamic there that I'm just like, you know, looking back, I'm not cool with now. And that's something that was pushed as humor back then. You know, I'm like, you know, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that, you know, like the older I got, specifically for me, the further my humor changed. Because believe it or not, I actually do like to laugh. I do like funny things. I do like to be amused. I just like to be able to be amused by stuff I think makes sense. I'm not trying to laugh at LOL, this person is ugly, or LOL, this person is dumb. I'm not trying to laugh at insult comedy. I'm not trying to laugh at slapstick comedy. I'm not trying to laugh at people getting dissed because of how they look or what they've done or something of that nature. Unless, of course, there's like, you know, white supremacists and bigots and, you know, people in that category, because those people are bad people. So it's like anything bad that happens to them, I think is going to be hilarious because justice is actually being served. Yay! Also, in politics, I don't have any respect for Kirsten Sinema. I think that she is a terrible person, and I just need to know specifically, Arizona, what in the world is going on? Andy Biggs, Paul Gosar, Kirsten Sinema. I mean, y'all almost had Governor Kerry Lake. I mean, you know, granted, Georgia has, you know, Brian Kemp and Marjorie Taylor Greene, but at the very least, they said, hey, let's not put in Herschel Walker. That should be the line. I just wish that things was like. I just wish that people would understand that, like, I'm not saying understand. I just really wish that there was a belief that being an obnoxious jerk is not a good thing. That's what I wish. I wish that people would realize that being an obnoxious, mean person isn't funny or amusing or should be normalized. It should be like demonized and or questioned, because this sort of thing should not be normal. I mean, why would you want to bring kids into a society that is awful? This took too long. That's it, guys. Love and peace. Y'all be safe out there. Be happy. And yeah.